Hello everyone, welcome to America's Third Party. I'm David John Sponheim and I'm in favor of peace. And this is a good day for America. We've got a lot more peace as a result of Obama finally backing down on his effort to start a war in Syria. What does it take to convince him that he needs to do the right thing? I mean, we clearly need to stay out of other countries, and that's why a third party would help us resolve a lot of the conflict we have around the world. America has got a simple plan, and that is if we continue going along the two-party angle, it'll continue to bumble and make mistakes and hand over the torch to the UN when we should have a coherent foreign policy. We should have a strategy that we can implement worldwide that makes sense not only for us but for other countries as well. Now, what Obama has done is he's handed over the torch essentially to the UN. And the UN is in no way capable of handling anything. I mean, let's not forget Kofi Annan and all that scandal with the Iraq oil and his family members profiting. And I mean, handing the UN the football is like handling the worst bumbling water boy on the football field. And I don't know what to do. Essentially, they're going to be handling the chemicals that supposedly were being used against the people in Damascus. And we think at America's Third Party that that's a good position right now to start with, but we need direct oversight. Our country has got to get to the facts before we jump the gun like Obama did the past 2 weeks when he's tried to start a war. And I got to tell you, we've done everything we could to stop it. I had a Saturday show dedicated to peace. I had the Peace Show every Saturday for the past 2 Saturdays, and we've been doing an anti-war rally. And I can tell you that all of you anti-war protesters who silently do this like we do, or openly do it like we do, you are the reason why this country is finally reaching a rational state. But Barack Obama continues to act like we need to do something. And the UN is going to find a rationale to do something. You know that they are. These are the kind of people that operate in the dark shadows of the world political scene. These are the players that think that they can make big decisions, like global decisions, like a new world order plan to take over every nation that doesn't abide by their bidding. That's what's going on. Now, the UN, mind you, is just another arm of the IMF and the World Bank, the very same people that brought you the puppet Obama. Yes, the puppet Obama has essentially, but the guy who, reads whatever the teleprompter says, has essentially been pushing for the war in Syria so that the World Bank and the monetary system that they control falls in step with their big master plan of global control. And I believe that this country is a classic example of the nation-state model working well until now. Because right now we're seeing the new world order emerge, where a global world government is starting to make decisions that go on in the world. This whole thing about gas in Syria would never have even been an issue had Barack Obama just dealt with it realistically. That we can't push democracy on any other country. We also can't fund rebel troops that are clearly Al-Qaeda. But instead, he won't admit that he's funding rebel troops that are Al-Qaeda. John McCain won't admit he's funding rebel troops that are formerly Al-Qaeda or Al-Qaeda. The fact is, our nation is going down a very dark trail in foreign policy with no coherent, clear vision for where we're going. Our nation has systematically supported the Islamicists and jihadists and Arab revolutions around the countries that involve, like Yemen, Tunisia, Libya, and now Egypt, and now Syria. You see what's happening? A general move toward a Muslim-dominated world. And now I find that the Muslims are going to be marching on Washington, D.C., and then there's going to be another 2 million bikers right next to them. That's a potential recipe for a clash. That's a potential recipe for a hotspot. If the New World Order players are really thinking that this is the game plan, this is what I predict is going to happen. The story about the gas will be vetted only insofar as the position that human rights organizations like Human Rights Watch is taking right now, that it was Assad that did the gassing. That will be the only story that they talk about. Human Rights Watch must know what they're doing. After all, they couldn't be bought off, but they clearly are bought off because they're not looking at the big picture. The big picture shows very little amounts of fluoride found in the hair of supposedly some people deceased. Now you or I, or anybody drinking tap water in the United States would have that much fluoride in their system. If your hair was tested, you'd come up as a gas victim of Damascus, based on the tests and the rigor of scientific scrutiny that's going on at any level within this entire examination of the gassing. If the UN is able to get better results and more accurate scientific studies are done showing emphatically that it definitely traces to a missile that came out of Assad's government, and then the UN is going to justify this to the world, and then they are going to initiate the same thing that Obama just put together, a strike on Damascus. So this whole thing right now with Obama coming out acting like this is his idea when it's not, it's Russia's idea, he is basically framing it to seem like it's a peace thing he's doing. He's trying to move toward peace when in fact Obama's just waiting in the rears, or at least his handlers are, the ones that deliver the teleprompter message, are waiting in the rears until the UN decides that, oh yes, this is definitely gas that came from Assad. Then you're going to see the machinery of war revved up again, and then you're going to see America go into war with NATO forces. Watch and see. That's what I believe was going to happen, because their imminent goal is to take Syria down. They want control of the oil pipeline that runs through Syria. They also want access to their monetary system and total domination over the region. They also want to pressure another country, Iran. They feel that if they can take Syria out, this table is going to fall, because this table is resting on a couple of primary legs: Iran, Syria, Lebanon, etc. But what we have right now is instability evolving in the Middle East, which, guess what? Whatever happens that comes from this point on to pass is essentially the next step in an evolution of global economic decline. You see, the real truth is the IMF and the global economic community has inflated dollars so large, so big, that they become bigger than life. Money has become relatively worth less as a result of them printing up tons and tons of money. Now, I believe that if we had solvency to our currency at an international level, we would have a much better solution for our country. We would have a perhaps a stable economy where our dollar is no longer supported by the petrodollar, that we no longer need to use military might to prop up our dollar. That's something I think that would help us. You know, I've got a couple videos here.
Old or crazed loan, not a sap.
Hang on just a second. I've got a couple videos here that are interesting. There's a video out right now that I play at the beginning of our show. Basically, who needs war?
All the wars are wars for the bankers, for the private sector.
All the wars are wars for the bankers.
A lot of people are going to have difficulty comprehending this. Just how...
Well, yeah. See, he actually did a video and he showed how all these years, Vietnam War, the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, were all for the bankers. And this message resonates forward, and we must look at exactly who's going to profit from a war in Syria. Well, obviously, we continue to bolster our petrodollar, which allows the Federal Reserve and the World Bank to inflate money to keep funding this failed operation. Various economies that are not reaching austerity levels are still going to be facing major debt. What they do essentially is create so much debt in these countries that the countries have to call the IMF and say, oh yes, so could you please loan us some money? Because we're running out. And the IMF just gives it to their big, huge banking system in each country, and they disseminate it among their cronies. Well, this entire Ponzi scheme is propped up by war. And the war in Syria essentially would not only help fund military industrial leaders like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, but many companies that profit from the industry of war will actually turn a major personal profit internally. They'll make more money for their CEOs. They'll have bigger and better parties. We, the American people, are not going to benefit from them having a lot of Tomahawk missiles have to be delivered to the arsenal of the U.S. military. They're not going to really drop that money into our pockets, yours and mine. They'll continue to tax you and me, and then they'll see a major spike in the price of gas too, because war creates a lot of austerity and a lot of disparity, and a lot of oil crises could evolve. What's going on overseas with Egypt, as well as Saudi Arabia, could spill off, and if there is a war in Syria, we could very well see a spike in gas. Now, imagine this scenario. The price of gas gets up to $9 a gallon by the end of 2014. Obama gets his war in Syria with the UN. Major shortages occur in food, areas that you wouldn't think would happen. You see shortages of food. Then you see municipalities go bankrupt because they can't keep up with this spending. The cost of running these socialist enterprises all across the country. You're going to see bonds go down in the municipal markets, and then you're going to see kind of a feeding frenzy in the market that will create a huge implosion, and the stock market will become descending down to levels 7,000 to 8,000, half of what they are today. This then triggers energy crisis, electric grid goes down. Then you're out at your house wondering, gee, I don't have any power, and maybe I just want somebody, some police officer comes by your door and says, we need you to get out of and vacate these premises. This is going to be controlled by FEMA. There's looting and rioting, and ghettos are forming, and there's gang members that are attacking. We're here to protect you. You need to get into the van and go to FEMA. You'll be safe there. You see how quickly I descended into the worst case scenario? And that's not even the worst case scenario, because a volley of war Tomahawk missiles into Syria could very well lead to global nuclear annihilation. What I described was not the worst case scenario. It's actually the next best thing to the worst case scenario. But some people would think being dead would be better than having to be slowly tortured at the hands of military cop warriors that are striking your individual freedoms. That's what's going on. So they're systematically... Grand Cyclops is getting horny here. You're pretty funny. You're systematically seeing a breakdown in your country through the apparent socialist plan and the global new world order of Barack Obama. Okay? I think that's enough said. We'll just end the video there because we're trying to, wrap this up rather quickly. And I am going to be doing a little bit more on screen for you who are watching 6 to 9. You know our show goes 6 to 9. It feels good for me to do the show, and it feels good for you to watch, so hey, it's all a good thing. But you can catch us 6 to 9 now every single day except Sunday. Saturdays, I'm going to continue to do an anti-war show because I have a feeling that the UN is going to somehow find the rationalization to strike Syria. That's coming. That's Chapter 2, Act 1. Thank you very much for watching. And do tweet at Third Party when you can. It really helps.